I'm a 27-year-old man, and I've been married to my wife, who's also 27, for 3 years now. We've been together for a total of 7 years. From the very beginning, I've been open and honest about not wanting to have children. We even discussed it on our first date, and she told me she felt the same way, no kids for her either. But everything changed 3 months ago. 3 months ago, my wife came to me and asked if we could try to have a baby. I told her no, but I wanted to have an open and honest conversation about why I feel that way. I didn't want her to feel like her feelings weren't important, so we talked about it for a long time. I explained my reasons for not wanting kids, and I made it clear that I don't ever see myself changing my mind about having children. I wanted to be clear and respectful, but also firm in my decision. I made it clear to my wife that I love and value her deeply, and I understand that this decision could be a deal breaker for her. I told her that if she feels strongly about having kids, I won't stand in her way if she decides to leave our marriage. But I also made it clear that I don't want our relationship to end over this issue because I love her so much. She seemed to understand my perspective, and she reassured me that she loves me regardless of whether we have kids or not. She even said that our relationship is bigger than this one issue, and that kids don't define our love for each other. At the time, it seemed like we had come to a mutual understanding and that she was willing to accept my decision. Last night I was lying in bed watching TV when my wife came upstairs with a huge smile on her face. I smiled back at her, thinking she was just happy about something, and then she said, "I have a surprise for you, sweetie," I replied. "Aw, WW, that's so kind of you." But when I opened the box, my heart sank. Inside was a positive pregnancy test. She exclaimed, surprised, but I was in shock. I didn't know how to react, so I asked her how she was feeling about it. I was trying to process my own emotions, but I wanted to hear her thoughts first. She snuggled up beside me in bed, her hand on her stomach, and said, "This is the best thing that's ever happened to us." I kissed her, trying to hide my shock and uncertainty. I told her that even though it was a surprise, I'm sure we can figure it out if that's what she wants. She giggled and said, "A surprise to you, maybe, but not to me." I laughed too, but inside I was reeling. She continued, "Remember that conversation we had about starting a family? I knew you wouldn't change your mind, so I decided to take matters into my own hands and stop taking my birth control pills without telling you." My heart sank even further. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. We started arguing, and I told her that I felt like she had taken advantage of me. I said it wasn't fair that she had stopped taking her birth control pills without telling me. She claimed that I was just trying to avoid admitting that I had changed my mind about having kids, and that I was fine with it deep down. But I tried to explain that it was different back then. We had discussed it openly, and even with birth control, there was still a small chance of getting pregnant. I wanted us to take responsibility for that together as a team. But she wasn't listening, and the argument continued. I told her that if she didn't want to go through with an abortion, I would support her and our child. I said it's not the child's fault that they exist, and even though I don't want kids, I know I would love this child forever because they would be mine. But she got angry and stormed off to the guest room. The next morning, we barely spoke. She left for work, and I made dinner for us, hoping we could talk things through. But when she got home, our conversation ended with her saying, "Well, I'm already pregnant, so deal with it." Then she got up and walked away, leaving me feeling frustrated and unsure of what to do next. I feel like she's taken advantage of me and doesn't care about my feelings or desires. The fact that I don't want to have a kid is being ignored, and it's like she's steamrolling over my wishes. To be honest, I've been thinking about escaping this situation and moving back to the UK, where my friends and family are. I could do this comfortably, and my job would allow it. I've even been browsing houses online, and there are some nice ones for sale in my hometown. It's tempting to just leave and start fresh, but I know that's not a simple solution, and it would have a big impact on our relationship and our lives. I know that leaving my wife while she's pregnant and abandoning my child would be a selfish and hurtful move. I recognize that my child's existence isn't their mother's mistake, and I shouldn't punish them for her actions. But I'm still struggling with whether I should leave my wife, given the huge boundaries she's crossed. I'm torn between my desire to escape this situation and my sense of responsibility to my child. I'm considering therapy to work through our issues, but I'm unsure if I can truly forgive her. And the thought of not being involved in my child's life is unbearable. It's a painful conflict that's tearing me apart. Honestly, if she were further along in her pregnancy, I wouldn't be considering leaving. But since she's still early on, I'm tempted to leave and move to the UK, thinking that she could simply get an abortion. However, that would mean putting her through a difficult experience, both physically and emotionally, and I would be abandoning her in that moment. As I sit here next to her in bed, typing this while she sleeps, I'm torn. Would I be the asshole if I left my pregnant wife? I'm unsure. Please let me know if you're confused about anything, and I'll try to clarify. Story 2. I work at a nice restaurant with a patio area. One evening, we had a reservation for 7:30 p.m., and the guest requested a table by the fountain, a popular spot. Earlier, at 5 p.m., we had seated a group at one of the tables near the fountain. They stayed until 8:30 p.m. Meanwhile, we seated another group at the other fountain table at 6 p.m., and they lingered until 8:15 p.m. after paying their bill. When the 7:30 p.m. reservation arrived, they were unhappy to see that both tables were still occupied, even though it looked like both groups had finished their meals and paid. They asked us to wait, hoping that one of the tables would become available soon. I offered them a nearby table and promised to bring them a glass of wine while they waited. They ended up waiting for 45 minutes. I apologized and explained that the group at one of the fountain tables had been there since 5 p.m., which was unusual, and that both tables were taking longer than expected to leave. As soon as one of the tables vacated, we quickly prepared the table for them. I also let them know that I needed to take their order by 8:30 p.m., as that's when our kitchen closes. However, they seemed unhappy with this information. Eventually, they moved to their new table. I took their order and they took their time enjoying their meal. As a result, I and the kitchen staff had to stay longer than usual, waiting for them to decide if they wanted dessert. The service went smoothly, and the food looked delicious. They finally left around 10 p.m., which is a bit later than our usual closing time of 9 p.m., but not unheard of. But then I saw what they left me as $0 tip on a $300 bill. And to add insult to injury, they left a single penny in the check presenter. I couldn't believe it. To top it all off, they wrote a note on the credit card slip saying how unprecedented with cute little hearts around it. I'm still fuming about it. I want to add that there were other available tables on the patio that they could have chosen, and we had even seated them at one of them initially with menus. However, they had their hearts set on one of the two prime tables, which were already occupied. It was their decision to wait, and I tried my best to make them comfortable. They chose to stay, and I did my part to accommodate them. Still, the lack of appreciation and the sarcastic note left a sour taste in my mouth.